Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Roast.
And I'm Jessica Bun Bun.
Welcome to our reaction and review for The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 4. We're at a point now where I think the story's really going to start cooking with gas a little bit more. Episode 3 was a lot of setup, was a lot of, okay, we got to move past the Joel tragedy. We got to get Dina and Ellie up to Seattle. They're now there, and now it is a time for revelations to come all over the place.
Yeah, there was a lot of, we'll call them secrets that have come to the surface here. We had Dina learning that Ellie is immune. We had Ellie learning that Dina is pregnant. And it feels like all the cards are on the table at this point for these two women to make some decisions, figure out what they're going to do, and move forward.
Yeah, it's an exciting episode just from the vantage point of like, okay, revelations. I think a lot of us assumed at some point, I know a lot of you guys in the comments on our last preview video assumed that we were going to see a situation where Ellie was going to admit to the fact that she was immune. And obviously that is a secret she has held on to for a very, very long time. But the Dina pregnancy reveal, this blew me away. I did not think or imagine or even fathom that that was going to be a thing.
Yeah, and it was done in such a way that makes sense where Dina is so overwhelmed with everything that is going on, with Ellie getting bit, not really knowing about the immunity, not knowing if she's really going to lose her or not. Even after Ellie tells her the truth, she still just doesn't know if she can believe it and is just so overwhelmed that she blurts out that she's pregnant. I mean, I feel like a lot of us have been in that situation where we are really overwhelmed by something,
Yeah.
thinking we're going to lose somebody that we really care about. And when we realize that that's not happening, it's time to just put everything on the table so that they can be together openly and honestly.
This episode did a lot right. Like, there's one issue that I'm kind of struggling a little bit with, and we'll get into that more as this video continues. Before we go too much further here, though, just a quick reminder, Jess and I have not played The Last of Us video games. We are going into this spoiler free. Please, if you have played the games, don't put spoilers in the comments. Like, we really, really appreciate it. We love that you guys are so kind to let us go into this and be legitimately surprised by things like Dina being pregnant.
Yeah, it was such a surprise. Nobody has come into the comments and told us anything. And
Yeah.
yeah, we really appreciate that. This season has been full of surprises for us non-game players.
All right. So before we go forward here, be sure to hit that subscribe button because we have so much more coverage of The Last of Us reviews, previews. We don't want you guys to miss any of that. Also, we are in the midst of The Handmaid's Tale right now, and we are gearing up for the launch of Poker Face Season 2, which stars Natasha Lyonne. If you guys are a really big fan of just whodunits, old school mysteries, like this show is very much up your alley. It's also executive produced by Ryan Johnson, who did the Knives Out movies, which I know a lot of people, including Jess, really, really love.
Yeah, I love those movies and I love Poker Face. It's a really fun show. Also, follow us over on our Patreon. Over there, you can get exclusive videos on Murderbot, which is going to be coming up, and Criminal Minds Evolution, which is starting this week. And we will have reviews there every single week for the whole entire season of both of those shows, and is the only place that you can get those reviews. So thank you so much to everyone over there who is helping us.
All right, thank you guys. We really, really appreciate that. And okay, I'll say I'm gonna put on my beef hat, but I don't really. It's not a full beef, so this is just maybe, I don't know, a tartar hat at this point because I am a gamer. Like, I've made that very, very clear in some other videos. Just because we haven't played The Last of Us does not mean that we don't play video games. And I think the thing that I'm struggling with the most right now on this season is just that I wish we had a little bit more time to sort of deal with and understand groups like the Seraphites, even to an extent the WLF, because the sort of video games that I tend to play, whether it be, you know, BioWare stuff like Dragon Age or Mass Effect or really any Final Fantasy game ever. Like, I play games that are typically 50 hours to 100 hours. And because of that, you have all this time to just like steep into the lore of stuff. I mean, even an Elder Scrolls game. I mean, the Oblivion remaster just came out. We've both been playing that. It's like you have books, you have all this different stuff to pick up on. I feel like right now on the show, I wish there was more time to get to know like what's going on between the WLF and the Seraphites and how Isaac ended up making some of the decisions he did in this episode. But it just feels like I know the second game is being split up into multiple seasons, but it still feels like everything is just moving really, really fast. And I wish we had more time with all of it. So it's not like the show's doing a bad job in giving us this. It's just I'm greedy. I want more of it.
Yeah, we needed more episodes. I felt like this episode would have been a great episode to dive more into everything that was going on, watching, Isaac leave Fedra to move forward with Wolf and all of that. Like it felt like it went by very quickly. I would have liked to know more of the lore of it, and I would have really liked this episode to be about that. I mean they were that whole scene with Isaac in the stove and trying to get information, and he's just basically like, yeah, you broke this truce, I broke this truce, we did this, it's been going on forever. And they summed it up in just a couple of sentences where it feels like there's a lot of history there, and I would have liked to, learned more of it. I understand if I play the game, I will learn more of it. But because this is the TV show and I'm just a TV show watcher, I would have liked there to have been more time with it. And I feel like if they had even given this 8 episodes instead of 7 episodes, this episode could have been that lore episode.
Yeah, and I'm sitting here being like, okay, who do I blame for this, for not getting this? Do I look at Warner Brothers Discovery and be like, you guys are too cheap right now because rumor has it we were supposed to get more House of the Dragon than we did, and you ended up moving some things. I don't know the reasoning behind it, but I am sort of sitting here and being like, almost everybody's favorite episode of season 1 was the Bill and Frank episode, which did not really have Joel and Ellie in it very much until the very, very end of it. And so, yeah, to pick up what you're putting down about the idea of having a whole episode about sort of Isaac and what's going on here and his decisions, like that would have been really compelling because I think we all know that Jeffrey Wright is an amazing actor.
Yeah.
We all know he can play good guys. In this case, he can play a very, very terrifying guy. And to spend more time in his shoes, like, yeah, that could have been very effective.
Yeah, I feel like if we could have just had a whole episode with him moving from Fedra to Wolf to what's going on to all the different factions and what's going on between them, I think that would have been great for us non-game players. And there is a lot of us out there that don't know the games that are learning about it through this show, and that might then go and play the games later and get more of the lore if it's in there. But for us here, because it's about the show, they've given me enough to know like, oh, these people are beefing with these people, but it's not as deep and delicious as it could be.
Yeah, and I think it's an issue of us only having so much time in this story. We know there's a season 3, who knows if that's going to be the end or not. And I understand fully that we are watching the journey of Ellie and Dina, and those characters are really important. And I certainly still want them to get their due. I just think that this show, as good as it is, it could be even better if it just took a little bit more time to expand outward some of the other things that are going on, because it does feel in a lot of ways like, not that we're watching a totally different show than season 1, but it's a very different show than season 1.
Yeah, I think with just how brutal some of this stuff is, where, Isaac is using the hot pan, and then we see Ellie and Dina go into the tower and see everybody, hanging there and trails everywhere. How did it get to this point? I know Isaac was like, oh, this, that, and now we're here. None of it matters anymore. It's kind of like, yeah, that is kind of how beefs like that start. It starts as like, oh, you killed this person. Well, now you killed this person. And now we're here. And it builds up into this. But yeah, I really would have liked a little bit more with that, because by the time we did get to Dina and Ellie walking into that room and everybody is there hanging, I'm just kind of like, wow, how did they get to here?
It's really brutal. I will just say that, Jeffrey, you are so charismatic, though, that I knew you were up to no good when you were doing your whole monologue about the pans and how copper is really conducive to heat and all that. But as somebody who cooks a lot, I was just on pins and needles. I was just like, give me more information about cooking technique, Isaac. Like, this is pretty useful, but no, you're using it for the worst purpose ever.
Yeah, and I mean, it was interesting to sort of see where he started, where he was working with Phaedra, and they were like talking back and forth and sort of mocking the citizens, calling them voters because they've had their right taken away from them, and it's a way to like mock them. And he is over it. He's had enough of it. He takes out the whole truck filled with his own people he was working with, because he is done with it. He is moving to this other side. And then we see him 11 years later, where it's like, okay, he did this to Phaedra, but now he's moved over here to Wolf, and now he's doing similar things. Like, was this the bigger, better move? Does he feel like citizens are getting what they need?
It really feels like Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann are basically pointing at all of us and making us try to answer the question of what does it mean to be a good guy in the world of The Last of Us? Like,
Right.
are there good guys? I mean, ultimately, we're rooting for Ellie and Dina, obviously, but their whole mission right now is to find someone and kill them. I mean, granted, it is very justifiable revenge because they took out Joel, who had taken out a lot of other people, but it's still, this whole show is about carnage and chaos. It's like nobody's really out here advocating peace, and so it is that we have to sit back and be like, okay, who are the really likable people here? Like, who are we supposed to root for?
Yeah, for such a grim episode, I mean, they did have that moment where Ellie and Dina were rolling through town being like, what's with all the rainbows? I don't know. Maybe they were optimists. And it was nice to have that moment where it's like, there are still that feeling of optimism with this show, that while there are a lot of very grim moments, especially in this episode, and lots of scary moments, that there is still optimism out there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, there were some very sweet moments with the two of them, and I think what we sort of see reflected in a lot of that is just this loss of innocence, because these two are extremely young. Like, they don't really understand what life was like once upon a time. Like, they don't even understand, like common symbols of things that we immediately associate with something totally different. And they are kind of experiencing this world for the first time, but they're also so jaded and so just beaten up by the fact that they're constantly having to look over their shoulder. They don't know who to trust. Like, they have to deal with problems left, right, and center. Even in this episode, like, yeah, they're dealing with a lot of problems here, and it's not even necessarily just the cordyceps or the clickers. It's, people, other people in this world.
Yeah, I think that, it could be seen as the throwaway line of, I don't know, maybe they were optimists, but I feel like after Dina learns that she's pregnant and she tells Ellie this, and they are together finally, intimately they are together, it feels like, as a unit, as partners, as a couple, that they're going to go through this. That very sweet moment when Ellie's like, I'm going to be a dad, so cute. Like, them together with this baby, it just all does feel so optimistic that there is going to be, hope. There's going to be a baby for this couple, that there could be a better world.
I really want to cling on to that hope, and I think we all do, just because we want to think that there's some sort of light at the end of the tunnel for these two. And I think because we had that hope, and because we had some of these like optimistic scenes, if you will, throughout some of the episode, that I think it did make that reveal of the two of them really, confessing their feelings for each other and finally embracing something that, was clear all the way back when they had that dance together. Like, it was a lot more satisfying. I'm glad that they waited to this episode to make it happen, and it wasn't like really, really rushed right after Joel's death. We talked about this in the review for last week. It would have felt too fast if it was then.
Yeah, it was a really nice, slower build up, seeing the scene with the guitar and the record shop and the baby. And even during all the action when they're discovered and they're like running and they're running through the subway tunnels, that felt like something that, you guys can let me know this spoiler, is that straight out of the game? Because that felt like I was in a video game with them running through the subways, running through the actual cars. Like, I felt like I was in a video game. And Ellie really was embodying Joel there. Like, I felt like Daddy Joel was there, Ellie was there being daddy and just taking care of everything, make sure Dina was safe. Like, it was really cool.
As somebody who hasn't played the games, like I would hope that's a part of the video games. I would also hope that the idea of Ellie embodying Joel was in there as well, because I think it was effective in a couple different ways in this episode of reminding us that, okay, this show is not going to do the typical, they do this all the time on crime procedurals where it's a character gets killed off, you mention it for an episode, and then immediately after that you just stop mentioning it, I guess because you assume that somebody is just binging it on Netflix and watching them out of order and they don't want to think about a character being dead all the time. But I love in between that scene and between the guitar scene that we have these reminders that Joel is still there and that Joel is a part of Ellie now. And she's basically learned both, in terms of serious moments, life threatening moments, but also just normal day to day moments, how to function because of him.
Yeah, it felt like Joel was in this episode. The last episode, it felt like we were really grieving Joel, but his spirit very much was there in that subway car scene.
It was, and I think that his lessons have passed along to Ellie, and I think an important lesson is just, you have to find a way to live even no matter what you've gone through. And when we met Joel, he did not clearly want to live. Like, it took him a while to sort of get to a point where he could accept that. And I think for Ellie and Dina both, this idea of they're facing death in some very different ways kind of finally opens their eyes fully, because Ellie obviously knows that she's not going to end up being infected. Like, she's okay, she's immune, but Dina doesn't know that. And so Dina's got the gun pointed at her. And so that's a moment where Ellie's life is actually flashing before her eyes in a way that she probably isn't really used to. And we certainly know already how Dina was feeling in that moment.
Yeah, Dina felt like her life was flashing before her eyes as well. All these things that she was hopeful for her and Ellie and for their future and to be together. And, that moment of, oh, all these things that, I was kind of hoping for and daydreaming about just are not going to happen because she has sacrificed herself for me to be able to live. Yeah, she's spinning this immunity thing, but is it because, obviously she doesn't want to die, or is it actually real?
Ellie, I will give you a lot of credit for this, for having a good little explanation prepared in advance. Obviously, you've had years to perhaps perfect this, but when your life is on the line like this, often you probably don't know what to say. If I was in that situation, I would probably be like, blah, 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 what? But no, I mean, she figures out a way to convince Dina to just, okay, let me sleep. You can keep the gun pointed at me, all of this, and it ends up being the thing that eventually, really saves her life. And I think Dina realizing that Ellie is okay, that's really the moment where the two of them are like, okay, we just got to embrace this now because we don't know whatever is going to be coming up.
Yeah.
I did really like the two of them coming together in that moment. I like the idea that now you can move forward as a unit, but throwing this pregnancy reveal into this, it's one thing to be as reckless as the two of them are, and we have seen that all season long.
Mhm.
But to throw a potential unborn baby into this mix, it kind of feels like you have to approach stuff differently.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we've seen this on other shows like The Walking Dead as well, where, you want to have protection in a better world for your baby as well. And the idea, I think, for Dina, when they're like, "Oh, Lake Hill, okay, it's over there. We've kind of figured out what to do." Where Ellie's like, "Oh, it's different now," and Dina's like, "No, it's not different now," because of that idea that maybe they're gonna have Abby and her group or whoever come back to Jackson Hole, so that it's not really safe until they take care of this.
It's something that both of them have to like think through completely, because I understood where Ellie was coming from in that moment, but I also understood where Dina was coming after the fact here,
Yeah.
because eventually, this baby's gonna enter the world, and you want this baby to grow up in the best environment possible, and that's not an environment where Abby is still around. Like, I'll ask this question to you and to everybody out there. Is it okay that we've gone a couple of episodes now without seeing Abby? I'm okay with it. There was a part of me that was sort of like, it is interesting to kind of see, okay, what is she doing now that she's gotten her revenge, and us being able to see that, I think will be interesting. But I do like the idea that we're kind of being thrown into Ellie and Dina's shoes where we don't know where she is either.
Yeah, I like that we don't know what's going on with her. I mean, for her she may feel like, yeah, it's over now. I've gotten my revenge. I'm back with everybody else and we're moving forward in a different direction now. So, the idea that she just doesn't know what's coming and she thinks she's moving on, that's fine with me. I'd like to see the surprise on her face when Ellie finally finds her.
Well, they did hear Nora's voice, so they at least have a lead now to potentially get them to Abby. But I think the best thing that's going for Dina and Ellie, and I hate to say this for everybody else who's living in Seattle because this is probably really terrible, but they're working out in a good way because of what's going on with the wolves and then the Seraphites, because they are going to be so distracted, sort of going at each other, that it feels like there's a way to go undercover amidst all of this, where any sort of chaos you can sort of cause along the way, you can just sort of point to another group and be like, oh, hey, they did it. And nobody even knows that you're there. So you have that element of surprise as well.
Mhm.
I think we're set up now for a really interesting next few episodes, sort of seeing what these two do. But as much as I felt like episode 3 really drug its feet, we really got somewhere in this episode. Yeah, I want more of this world. I want more of understanding what's going on with people like Isaac, but that's just really a credit to the show for making me that invested.
Absolutely. More episodes, please.
All right. Well, that's where we are coming out of The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 4. What did you guys think about this episode? Some of the big moments. Where do you want to see things go from here for Dina and Ellie? Please leave it in the comments, but no spoilers. We have not played the games, but also if you want to support us further, be sure to join our Patreon. That link is in the description. We're covering exclusively there in video form. Criminal Minds, Evolution, Murderbot, thank you so much. We will see you here next time.